Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast for Ray of Light Part 1. I have to say, tonight was a fantastic episode. We had a lot of comedic relief to help balance out the more, depressing parts from, of course, last week and as well on this week. The opening scene to me, it was just great. I can't really put my finger on it, but something was just really enjoyable about it. You have Eli, Jake, and Mo all together, playing video games. Fiona comes in, what is this movie or this project that she wants Eli to do? And, cut to credits. I mean, the opening scene to me was just really solid in a fantastic way, to start off the episode. I love the bromance the three guys have going on right now. It's a great dynamic for the show. It's been making Mo a lot more enjoyable. I love the callback to the last episode. Of course, there was going to be, callbacks to that. And I love after, a two-part episode and the following episodes, seeing how it affects, other characters and how the actions are still lingering. Of course, Eli played a big role in the last episode since he did find Cam's body, but the episode was more about the reactions of Maya, and now this episode it is more about Eli, but Maya still in the background. So they kind of switched roles from last week to this week, and definitely a great thing for the show. We have another new character, at least for the time being, Talia, who kind of a bit crazy and fun at the party, and I'll get to that. And of course, we had a little random appearance from Luke. Welcome back to the show. I don't remember, when the last time he was on. Probably not, too long. I mean, there's such a gap between Vegas and these episodes. Obviously not in the show, but, since we've seen the episodes. So I can't really remember the last time, we've seen him, but I totally had forgot about him. So, I don't really have a whole lot to say about him. I still don't really care for him at all. This episode was great because we got to see a lot of characters in this episode, and those are my favorite episodes. Even if the characters aren't necessarily doing things to move along plots or, they're not having a ton of dialogue, it's just fun to see, so many different people. And, Connor and Jenna, love the Connor and Jenna. Um, I mean, just fantastic. The whole date scene in the space simulator pod thing, it was cute, it was funny, it was realistic, everything about it, it was just great. Um, I mean, so many things in here. I'm trying to remember everything. Normally I take, some notes as I'm watching, but this episode just really drew me in and, I was trying to focus on the actual episode. A lot of continuity in here, whisper hug. We had Katie apologizing for Vegas, a reference to Allie and her sexting, um, just all kinds of different continuity. Of course, Eli again wanting weed at the party. And the party was just, it was crazy. I mean, and I get the whole now why paint was involved in Eli's dream. It was supposed to obviously resemble blood, and I thought it looked kind of, you know, not really realistic looking as blood, but it makes sense to connect with the whole paint thing later on in the episode, so that was great. And like I said, the party, great. I love Maya performing, in her small plot. It was great, and the references to Katie in Vegas about getting the card, and then Katie just kind of went and attacked this guy. I mean, that was crazy, and definitely good. And I'm wondering, what's going to happen with Katie, and is she going to reveal, everything that sort of went on. Like I said, a lot of comedic relief in this episode. The final scene with Mo painting Jake while both of them are just staring off, like, what the hell is happening? Looking at Eli. Just a great scene and very funny. Great balance in this episode of just so many different things. The video yearbook scene as well, with all the past memories over this season. Incorporating a lot of characters that weren't actually in this episode, like Dave for one. I mean, just great, great stuff. Next week's episode is the highly anticipated, I know, Eli running around naked and hugging Mr. Simpson. Um, I really like where they're going with the whole Eli thing, and I'm very excited for next week. I think this is one of the, best episodes for sure of season 12. And I mean, when you view Bittersweet Symphony Part 1, Part 2, and this episode together, and of course, next week's as a 2 hour block, I think, it will all turn into, just a fantastic, block of television. I think these episodes all really need each other to help and balance them out, and that's why it's so hard, in the fall and spring and stuff when we're only getting one episode a week instead of the four. I just think viewing the episodes all at once, you really, can see how good these episodes are and how well they all play off of each other. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I will talk to you all next week.